You've survived another week. Thank you for listening, downloading, and supporting the Black Man with a Gun Show. This is episode number 559. Gun control equals bearing false witness against your neighbor. Are we a democracy or a republic? I'm going to talk about that. I got a rant, and our self-defense lawyer, Andrew Branca, is going to talk to us a little bit about a case of the week. And I got a shoot, don't shoot scenario for you to talk about on our Facebook page. And then I have a real long conversation with Michael. Are you ready? We, the unwilling, led by the unknowing, are doing the impossible for the ungrateful. We have done so much for so long with so little. We are now qualified to do anything with nothing.
BlackManWithAGun.com, Ken Blanchard's Pro-Gun Podcast.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I share something with you about the Pledge of Allegiance? The Pledge of Allegiance includes the phrase, "and to the republic for which it stands." You hear John Wayne say it every week. Did you know that the United States is indeed a republic and not a democracy? Truthfully, a democracy is a form of government in which the people decide policy matters directly through town hall meetings and or by voting on ballot initiatives and referendums. A republic, on the other hand, is a system in which the people choose representatives who, in turn, make policy decisions on their behalf. You got that? See, by popular usage, however, the word democracy come to mean a form of government in which the government derives its power from the people and is accountable to them for the use of that power. In this sense, the United States might accurately be called a democracy. However, there are examples of pure democracy at work in the United States today that would probably trouble the framers of the Constitution if they were still alive to see them. Many states allow for policy questions to be decided directly by the people by voting on ballot initiatives or referendums. Initiatives originate with or are initiated by the people, while referendums originate with or are referred to the people by a state legislative body. That the Constitution does not provide for national ballot initiatives or referendums is indicative of the framers' opposition to such mechanisms. They were not confident that the people had the time, wisdom, or level-headedness to make complex decisions, and such as those that are often presented on ballots on Election Day now. In the strictest sense of the word, the system of government established by the Constitution was never intended to be a democracy. And this is evident not only in the wording of the Pledge of Allegiance, but in the Constitution itself, which declares that, quote, "The United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a republican form of government. Moreover, the scheme of representation and the various mechanisms for selecting representatives established by the Constitution were clearly intended to produce a republic, not a democracy." Today, we often get ourselves twisted and confused by people we don't like that represent said party. But that has nothing to do with being Democratic or Republican in the true sense of the word. Crossbreed holsters are some of the finest holsters in America. They are imitated for a reason. They sell holsters, belts, modular systems. The U.S. company that my friend Mark Craig had started in 2005 has been a supporter for you and I for almost a decade. Crossbreed Holsters has raised the standard for customer service in the holster industry through its 2-week tried-free guarantee and a lifetime warranty. You tried the rest, now get the best. Go to crossbreedholsters.com and tell them Ken sent you. crossbreedholsters.com. Well, it's been a few weeks after the terrible, horrible, horrific Parkland, Florida shooting. And fear-mongering anti-rights activists and the clueless gun control socialist youth still don't get it. The pro-right side gets in trouble often when it looks like we don't have a heart. I know differently. We are the doers, the ones that get things done. But when it comes to social media, we goof. And sticking your head in the sand isn't an option either. It just makes it easier for people to kick you in the butt. Can I get an amen, somebody? If you are new to the gun control argument, and you are part of the generation that has the audacity to say out loud that you want to repeal the Second Amendment, you might be surprised to learn that your generation is the first without guns in school. When I was in high school, people rode the bus with rifles and shot their guns at high school rifle ranges that had them. After another school shooting, it's time to ask the question, the real one. What changed? Well, I can tell you, it wasn't the guns. In 1980, semi-automatic rifles existed, and a semi-automatic rifle was used in Florida. Guns didn't suddenly decide to visit mayhem on schools. Guns don't think, they don't decide, and they don't murder. They are still mechanical devices. Secondly, the Second Amendment doesn't need to be changed. It existed for over 200 years before the mass murderers that I mentioned in my last podcast unfolded. Nothing changed in the U.S. Constitution. And that leaves us with some pretty uncomfortable possibilities that are left. What changed? The mainstreaming of the rejection of all religious and moral principles, often in the belief that life itself is meaningless. You can call it cultural decay if you want. Some of it is the advancement of chemicals for recreation, for everything. The deliberate destruction of moral backstop. The lost commonality of shared societal pressures to enforce right and wrong. And above all, I still believe in the existence of evil. Demonic possession of people that don't have the protection. I don't care whether you believe in God or not. A simple definition of the darkness is the absence of light. And you can't blame the mentally ill. They've always been here. Schizophrenics existed in 1888 and 2018. Mentally ill students weren't showing up in schools with guns even 3 decades ago. So it's got to be something else, right? Those who have been so busy destroying the moral backstops in our culture won't want this to come out in the light. They do what they do. They mock the truth. You see, there was a time in America when an adult on the block could reprimand any kid who was out of line without fear. You know what I'm talking about. That nosy lady down the street who would scream out that she's going to tell your father or call your mother on the phone. Straighten you right up. Doesn't exist today. We don't even know our neighbors. And I could go on about how being a Christian or a person of a high moral value is mocked by everybody, especially that guy that does the cartoons for Family Guy and that whole crowd. But that's funny, right? Back in the hippie days, there was a mantra that said, don't trust anybody over 30. Well, now it's become a $1 billion industry devoted to the child always being right. A sometimes deeply medicated brat who disrupts the classroom or escapes what should be just a plain old slapdown. Instead of telling the kid to quit kicking the back of the seat on the airplane, we buy seat guards to protect the seat. But y'all don't hear me, though. I know I'm not alone here. But the high school kids who shot rifles in school in 1980 were taught right and wrong. They were taught what to do with the rifle in school and what not to do. If they got out of line, all the other students and the coach would have come down on them hard. There were no safe spaces, and that was a good thing. Our culture is a power for good. When good behavior is normalized and deviant, destructive behavior is ostracized, shamed, and marginalized, you get more of the good behavior. Today, the idea that guns cause the carnage we have faced is so intellectually bankrupt that it isn't worth discussing. Remembering where we were as a nation just 30 years ago makes it even more so. It's time to ask the real question. What changed? Around the country, gun control is hitting us all over the place. I asked a couple of friends on Facebook what's happening in their states, and this is what I got. Christopher Leet said that Governor McAuliffe, Virginia, partially nullified our CCWs via executive orders, Now, Governor Northam wants to require universal background checks, which is duck speak for a ban on personal firearm sales. Also, he wants to go back to 1 gun a month purchase limits. Chris says he anticipates even more executive overreach from Ralph Northam via executive orders. And hopefully our state Senate stands strong against this Bloomberg skin puppet of the Virginia governor. Joe McDonnell of Florida says that the Florida legislature is out of control this session. Yesterday in the Senate was a nightmare, he says. Looks like will be infringements aplenty being sent to the governor after tomorrow. Age restrictions for long guns, bans on one sort or another, and the gunshine state is no more. My brother from another mother, Charlie Cook, from riding shotgun with Charlie, says the newest thing in Massachusetts is the banning of bump stocks. I think only 4 of them have been turned in, but when it went into effect at the beginning of February, the news were reporting that only 4 were turned in. It's as if everybody who has one of these items that no one knew anything about. My brother Roland Kaiser out of Ohio says that Governor Kasich, the sore loser in the Republican race for president, is backing a complete ban of the AR-15 and raising the age for purchase of a firearm. Legislation proposed immediately after the Florida incident by 2 opportunistic Democratic legislators. See, this is a We the People report, actually. Jason Allen out of Illinois says that Illinois is turning citizens into felons if they have a magazine that holds more than 10 rounds, and too many other ridiculous things to type out on his phone. But thank you, Jason. My brother Patrick McManus says in Washington state, there's no bump stocks, rifle purchase age to 21, and pushing for a complete ban on any AR-type rifles and more than 10-round magazines is happening out in his place. John Sarsfield said in California, there's a bill that was just introduced that would reclassify all semi-autos as, quote, assault weapons and ban them. Yes, all semi-autos. Such is the life in the People's Republic of California, he says. Out in Oregon, Eric Thompson said they are feeling good about closing the gun show loophole, but the only way you can get into trouble for making a private sale without a background check would be to either do it in front of a policeman or report yourself. It's a feel-good law with no enforceability. They passed a red flag law, he says. A family member could accuse you of being a danger to yourself or others. If you were accused of domestic violence or the police had to witness you being a danger, then under those circumstances, they can seize all firearms. Now they are amending it so that the police only have to believe you may be in danger. Also, anyone who thinks you may be a danger can have the police come to your house for a safety check. No due process needed. That's scary. My friend and Jared Richard said in Connecticut, your neighbor, who simply may not like you, can call the police and say that you're crazy. Police will promptly come and confiscate all your weapons. You may go to court after the fact to have your property returned if they allow it. And he says, I'm not making this up. That's Connecticut. Ralph Gihai said that semi-automatic ban, magazine limits, raise the age limit, and waiting periods on all guns, but looks like they hopefully will all fail in Florida. Kevin Moore said in Minnesota that they are proposing bans on all semi-automatic rifles, high-capacity magazines, mandatory background checks on private sales, mandatory registration of all existing weapons, mandatory yearly safe storage checks by the sheriff, banning of assault weapon sales, background checks on ammo purchases, ammo limits for purchasing, ammo and gun purchase waiting periods, storage of weapons of ammo at a gun club, mandatory reporting of all sales and transfers, mandatory transfer through FFL dealer, and in short, banning of all scary-looking things. That pretty much is like everything you can think about from Minnesota. And here in Maryland, they got like 32 bills to be held the next couple of weeks. It's bad, folks, all over. But there's some spots, especially in the Midwest, where people have a little bit more sense that nothing's happening there. A few years ago, a friend of mine started this thing called the United States Concealed Carry Association. It's an education, training, and self-defense insurance company now. It's for responsible gun owners. You can get complete peace of mind when you join USCCA today. If you carry a gun for self-defense, you need this. It's a whole package: education, training, and self-defense insurance. Call my friend. The number is 1-877-488-8353. And if you missed that, go to the link at blackmailthegun.com for USCCA. I hope you got that. That was USCCA.blackmailthegun.com. And now, here's Andrew with some legal self-defense and the tip of the week.
Thanks for having me on to share this week's Law of Self-Defense Case of the Week. I'm attorney Andrew Branca for lawofselfdefense.com. This content is provided for general educational purposes only. It does not constitute legal advice. If you are in need of legal advice, you must consult with competent legal counsel licensed to practice in the relevant jurisdiction. This week's Case of the Week, Jenkins v. State, comes out of the Mississippi Court of Appeals in a decision handed down February 13, 2018. The case involves the admissibility of evidence of specialized knowledge in self-defense cases. Jenkins, the appellant in this case, had shot and killed the adult son of his live-in girlfriend. He was charged with murder, which carries a sentence of life in prison in Mississippi. At trial, he was permitted to raise the legal defense of self-defense, and to buttress his claim of self-defense, he sought to introduce evidence tending to show the victim's violent nature, the victim of his use of purported deadly force, the adult son of his girlfriend. Specifically, the appellant wanted to introduce into evidence the victim's prior convictions for acts of violence. 4 years prior to the shooting, the victim had been convicted of carrying a concealed weapon, and 2 years and 1 year prior to the shooting, the victim had been convicted of domestic violence. Now, this kind of evidence is generally referred to as character evidence, and in general, character evidence is inadmissible in court. The legal principle being that just because someone may have acted one way in the past doesn't mean that they acted in conformity with that pattern on the particular instance that's the subject of a particular trial. Now, one major exception to this rule prohibiting the admissibility of character evidence arises in the context of a case of self-defense. If you're claiming self-defense, you're claiming that you had to defend yourself against some other person's threat or act of violence, and thus evidence of that other person's violent character becomes directly relevant to your defense. Here, however, the trial court denied the admissibility of the victim's prior convictions for acts of violence, so the jury never heard that evidence. Ultimately, the jury would reject the claim of self-defense, convict the appellant of murder, and the court would sentence him to life in prison. Now, the appellant appealed his conviction to the Court of Appeals in part on the grounds that the denial by the trial court of the evidence of the victim's prior convictions for acts of violence was reversible error that undermined his claim of self-defense. The Court of Appeals essentially reviewed the legal principles I've just described around the admissibility of normally prohibited character evidence in a self-defense case, but agreed that the trial court had made the correct decision in rejecting the character evidence in this case. Why? Because the appellant was not able to demonstrate that he knew of the victim's convictions for violent acts at the time he shot the victim in purported self-defense. Indeed, the evidence tended to show that he did not learn of the victim's prior convictions until after the fact. To quote the Court of Appeals, quote, "Because the appellant was unaware of the victim's prior convictions, he could not have considered the victim's violent past when he decided to shoot the victim. The convictions were irrelevant to the appellant's state of mind at the time he shot the victim and his subsequent self-defense theory. Therefore, the trial court did not err when it excluded evidence of the victim's prior convictions." Close quote. This kind of character evidence is also a form of specialized knowledge. Specialized knowledge meaning any kind of knowledge that you could not presume the jury to possess. The jury is presumed to possess common knowledge, things like fire is hot, but they're not presumed to possess specialized knowledge, which is either knowledge acquired in specialized education or training, or knowledge of a personal nature you would not expect the jury to know. If that specialized knowledge is relevant to a case, then it can be admitted into court, but only if the defendant can demonstrate that they possess that specialized knowledge at the time they acted in self-defense. If they only learned of the knowledge later, it could not have been relevant to their decision-making at the time of the events in question. This is important to us in the self-defense community because our community is chock full of specialized knowledge. Things like the Truller drill, things like the relative effectiveness or ineffectiveness of a handgun for self-defense, There's tons of stuff we learn in any kind of training, even just reading a gun magazine, that would qualify as specialized knowledge that might have informed our decision making in self-defense and might be why what might appear as an unreasonable use of defensive force if you didn't have this specialized knowledge becomes a reasonable use of defensive force if you do have this specialized knowledge. And if that knowledge is required in order to conclude that the use of defensive force was reasonable, well, who's making that decision in court? It's the jury. So it's really important that they be provided with the specialized knowledge. Typically, you would do that by bringing in an expert witness to testify about that specialized knowledge. An expert witness can come in only if the specialized knowledge is admissible, and it's only admissible if you can show that you possess that specialized knowledge at the time you acted in self-defense. If you didn't know it at the time, it won't be admissible. The take-home lesson for us is be sure to document your training. Keep your certificates. Keep a syllabus of the course. Keep your notes. The good news is you don't need a lot of evidence that you possessed some particular specialized knowledge at the time you acted in self-defense. It's basically a more than zero evidence threshold. If you can show more than zero evidence that you had that knowledge at the time, that will be good enough to get that evidence admitted. But if you can't show more than zero evidence, the prosecution will almost certainly be successful in keeping that knowledge from the jury. And that knowledge might be exactly what you need to convince the jury that your use of defensive force was reasonable under the circumstance. Always, we do encourage you to read the whole case, which in this particular instance is pretty straightforward because the decision is relatively short and it's largely written in plain English, so it's easy to understand. You can find that full case at our Patreon page at patreon.com/Law of Self-Defense. That's it for this week's Law of Self-Defense Case of the Week. As a listener of Reverend Blanchard's Black Man with a Gun podcast, you can save 10% on just about everything at lawofselfdefense.com, including live classes, online classes, instructional DVDs and books, and more by pointing your browser to lawofselfdefense.com/black and using the discount code BLACK at checkout. Don't forget, you carry a gun so you're hard to kill. Know the law so you're hard to convict. I'm attorney Andrew Branca for lawofselfdefense.com.
All right, next up is a feature we haven't had in a while, but it's a scenario for you to think about what you would do in a self-defense situation. This is a theater of the mind. So listen. Shoot, don't shoot. You decide. It's late in the evening, and you're home with the kids. The kids are taking a nap already, and you're thinking, man, all I'm missing is some snacks. Well, the kid's not going anywhere, so I'll just run out to the store real quick, get something, and pop right back. You do a quick check, keys, wallet, identification, concealed carry weapon. Yep, we're all set. And you take off. And you love your car, so you take a nice long ride, and you come right back from the store. You're all set. You got your munchies, you got some brews, and you're ready to Netflix and chill. With your handful of groceries, you get out of your car, and you realize that your front door is wide open. You slowly set the groceries down by the door, and you're slowly walking into your house. It doesn't look the same as when you left it. You know your children, too. They wouldn't have messed up what's messed up. Somebody's been here, and maybe they're still here. You slowly walk up the steps. The doors are open, and your two kids are still sleeping. You look around. Nobody's been up here. All the doors are still closed that were closed when you left. The kids are still knocked out. And then you hear it. Someone's downstairs. trying to breathe. You're now walking downstairs. You're looking over the rail. You're pieing around the corner, trying to keep your profile low and hidden to find out who is in your house. You turn the corner, and there he is. What do you say? What do you do? Where is your muzzle pointed? Have you practiced in your head what you would do? Would you
shoot or don't shoot? You decide.
And please let me know in the show notes for this episode on Facebook at our Black Man with a Gun #1 page in Facebook. Mike, what's going on with you this week?
Not too much, man. I had hung out with my little assistant this weekend. And,
oh, nice.
Yeah, we did daddy-daughter stuff, hanging out, having a good time, and overall, just bonding,
Yeah. You got the cutest little girl in the world.
Thanks, man. She's a handful, especially like when it's time for her to make her bed and clean her room. Her favorite saying is, "It's not fair." Why isn't it not fair? You made the mess. It's not fair. Okay, well, until you tell me why it's not fair, you're going to keep doing it.
Should look at the Lion King. That's the Lion King. That's Scar's line.
Yeah, man. So you had an interesting show last week. It was pretty touching.
Talking about the gun rights in the last 20-some years.
Yeah, that portion and how it connected with everything that's going on today with the shooting that took place in Parkland, Florida.
Yeah.
I
kind of want to put some balance to it because everybody's like just spun up and you got to have a platform. The only thing that's built on sand is the pyramids.
Right.
So you got to be really, really poignant when you're doing something. And we got a lot of like smart people on our side. You throw in facts and you're just throwing your pearls before swine. It's people who can't even register what you're trying to help them with. And they think that this thing is brand new. Like this is new for them. But and if you wonder why the National Rifle Association or a lot of organizations don't like react the same way that they are, like if you're like, and then somebody's like, let me tell you why we're doing this. You can't figure it out why they're not as hyped up as you. It's because they've been in this fight for a minute. It's kind of like being a veteran of several deployments. And then you get that new private that comes around and their eyes are like this big. This fight's been going on since the invention of gunpowder. So I try to put some perspective to it. That's all.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you made valid points, and I think you got your message across.
Thanks, man.
Because at the same time, when you turn around and you look at it, I know for me, like when I be hearing people talk, a lot of times it's like you playing chess. You got to think 10 moves ahead. Mm-hmm. And the 10 moves ahead is I don't want to see anything happen to any of the rights. But I also know if you do anything to the Second Amendment, that's the gateway to doing whatever you want to do.
And we got folks, man, who don't even know any of the amendments. They don't even know the Constitution. They don't know that states have rights. They don't know that everything that we have has been fought for, and that people have died to keep what we have. They don't know the amount of effort. And when you protest your government, which you have the right to do so, which the grievance is in the First Amendment, we think it's just a freedom of speech, but it's a lot more than that.
Oh, yeah.
When you go out there and you tell people that you want to change something, you got to know what you're asking. And most of them don't. They think that if I just get rid of these potato chips, that my fat problem will go away. It ain't like that.
Yeah. So normally what I do is when I'm out and about or like somebody's talking to me and we start talking rights or anything, I have these little pocket constitutions.
Nice.
And, I just give them to people. I don't charge them. Like, here, just take one, man, read up on the Constitution. Because, when I was younger, that's what my dad used to do. He used to challenge me and my brother and be like, hey, go look this up and see what it says. Right? And then later on, like, okay, when somebody says something to you, now when people start talking to you, they're going to look at you funny because, hey, how do you know that? Why do you know that?
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, my parents, man, like my family, they're big on that, knowing your rights and standing up for yourself.
Oh, that's cool. That's
Yeah.
why you're hard charger.
No, it's just one of those type things. Like one of my buddies put it in perspective of you just don't let people walk over you. You're not supposed to anyway, but half the time when people walk over you, it's because you don't know. So, but like I said, if you know what to do, what the outcome is, and everything else, you know how to better prepare yourself.
Man, I remember the first time I got a chance to talk to a congressional body of state legislators in Richmond, Virginia. There was this lady who was with us, and nice looking lady. She was a doctor, a veterinarian, and we were talking, a couple of minutes before we all testified. And she got on the stand, and the next thing I know, this lady was talking about how she was a concealed carry permit holder, but this restaurant that she went to didn't allow guns, so she left her gun in the car when this guy runs a vehicle into this restaurant with her and her parents and starts shooting people. And I had no idea she had just come through some traumatic stuff, man. And she lost her parents in this thing. And she said if she had had her gun, if she was a criminal, if she had gone against the law and brought her gun in here, she could have actually defended herself and her family. But she had to crouch down behind a chair, and hopefully he didn't get her. She actually escaped, I believe, with her mother, and she looked back and her dad was still there. You don't know how real that stuff is until you meet one of these people. And almost everybody has one or two things to do. You're either going to say, this will never happen to me again, or you want to put your head in the sand. And it's natural. Not everybody's a fighter. There's a lot of people who will run. And sometimes I think we get a little bit too bold, want everybody to be like us, and everybody's not made like us. Everybody doesn't run to the fight.
Right. So what's your take that sheriff at the Parkland High School?
Man, I have rarely met a sheriff that wasn't a political guy.
Mm-hmm.
And that enough is almost a bad word to me. You can't serve the people and the king at the same time. You're more the sheriff of Nottingham. You serving the king, the evil guy. You always got an agenda. In law enforcement was the same way. The chiefs of police, the lead law enforcement folks, they were all political appointees, friends of somebody, and their rules for the regular officer was way different. They would always try to put some stuff on you. And I think everybody's talking about, he should resign. He should get him out of there. I'm in agreement with that.
You are, or you're not?
I am.
Oh yeah. Because I know honestly what I stated was, to me, that was a coward act. Only reason I say that is because I'm trained to run towards the bullet sounds.
Yep.
And there's been plenty of times whereas I've gotten in trouble for going to the fight without my gear on, just a couple magazines and my rifle.
I know, but everybody's not hardwired like that. And unfortunately, in our day and age, you don't really know where you're going to go until the cow excrement hits the oscillating device. You don't know where you're going to stand unless you've been tried by fire. And unfortunately, in this day and age, everything's recorded. So in your moment of weakness, when you don't want to run and you want to hide, your stuff is out there. So you might want to find another job if you can.
Yeah, that's very true. Now, on the opposite side of that spectrum, somebody who is not doing no coward acts, he's actually sacrificing his livelihood in the gun industry. Hank Strange.
Yeah. I want to talk to Hank because.
Yeah, I'm doing an interview with him.
Nice.
Sometime this week, either tomorrow or before the end of the week, and I'm gonna have that to you by Saturday or Sunday.
Excellent.
Yeah, because actually I spoke with him today. It was just through text, and I asked him like, "Yo, man, let's do this," and he was like, "Okay, let's do it." So he just got to confirm some stuff because it's crazy, man. It was like Friday, he did his little show, and I was watching it. And then all of a sudden, Saturday, it was like, hey, they're shutting me down. Like, are you serious? What's really going on here? And it's just not him. It's targeting a lot of other gun channels also. And it's just, and I think what's taking place is people are just going on there complaining about whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Once you complain and you get so many strikes, you know what I'm saying? They make it whereas you can't come back, you know? So, but, you know, like a lot of those heavy hitters who's up there big time, you know, all of them feeling the wrath of whatever's going on with this Sprechergeddon. I guess that's what you can call it. He's doing okay. He has his supporters and he has his mission. He's driving forward. But I'm going to save that for the interview that we actually do where we talk about it.
Cool, man. Cool. That was on my list. I'm glad you're knocking it out. Man, it's good to have a partner in this thinking.
Man, you know how I do it. I told you I think outside the box.
That's good, man. That's good.
Yeah, but outside of that, though, man, ain't nothing really going on with me. Next week, I'm supposed to be going to do this competition with Johnny called Cola Wars.
Nice.
I'm not really looking forward to it.
Hey, why?
Oh, man, this is one of those awkward competitions where you do a shooting course and an obstacle course. So, you know, you can be doing your running, your jumping, tire yourself out, shoot under stress. I'm cool with that because you know, I've been doing that for years on end. The part I'm not cool with is you got to drink was like a total of 6 cans of carbonated drink, and you're still doing the obstacle course. You know, yeah. So it's like one of those, and I don't even drink soda like that. You know, I drink more water and juice than anything. Poison. Yeah, exactly. So I was like, well, you know.
Oh, that's why it's Cola. Yeah,
I'm gonna throw up on that one. I already know that.
Yeah. Oh, that's nasty.
Yeah, so it's one of those things that it's like a test. I don't know who came up with this fulcrum for this test, but I'm like, what if you're a diabetic? You can't do that. What's the substitute gonna be? You know?
Man, drinking a lot of liquids anyway is gonna make you feel funny anyway. So yeah. That's gonna be interesting.
Yeah. Oh, trust me. I'll probably do the next show out of the hospital, so be prepared for that one. Dirty and everything.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So where is this going to be at? South Carolina, Georgia? Where?
It's in Georgia, someplace in Georgia. Because honestly, I was thinking I was going to make an excuse to try to get out of it. But you know, that's not me because I'm that type of person. If I tell you I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
It's just now I'm more like, oh man, I really don't want to do this because you know it's the whole running portion, the shooting. I'm cool with that. The drinking of the soda, I'm not cool with that. It's like 2 or 3 days worth of stuff. Yeah, I know you got to take apart an AK. Yes, AK-47. You got to take it apart and put it back together and do a functions check on it.
All right.
I'm not cool with that one because you know I'm not an AK guy. You know,
it's not that bad. That thing's like really basic.
Oh yeah, once because he said there's going to be a station there where you can take it apart and put it together. Somebody will show you how to do it. Once I do it 2 or 3 times, I'm good at it.
You'll have it.
Yeah, I have it, but it's just all the AKs we confiscated. We always had like 3 or 5 guys, you know, platoon. That was the thing. Task. Yeah, like okay, take these apart, make them work, do whatever. You know what I'm saying? And then we turn around and once we do whatever we do, we give it to the police. You know, that's how they arm their police force. You know,
dude, guns are funky like that. I remember one time I was in Afghanistan before Osama bin Laden was a bad name, and we were against the Russians, and these Mujahideen freedom fighters had confiscated this pistol that had a built-in suppressor into it. It looked kind of like a Walter PPK with a suppressor on the front of it built in, and my boss was all happy with this thing, and he was messing with it like all night, and then early in the morning, he knocks on my door, and he says, "Hey, man, you getting ready to go in the command center?" And I said, "Yeah. If you have a few moments, can you put this thing back together?" He had taken it apart and had it in a brown sandwich bag. He couldn't get the pieces back together. I thought, I've never seen this gun in my life, and you want me to put it back together? But I had nothing but time, so by the time it got back, I had it back together. But man, that was funny. Speaking of shoot, man, I got a chance to shoot the this thing over the weekend.
Oh yeah, that thing looks beautiful though.
Man, this is the 627 V Comp by Smith, and has a compensator on the front of it. I have never had a revolver with a compensator. It's got the whole grips on the back of it. It's probably the nicest revolver I've ever had in my hand. It's shot like the real deal. It made me like want to become a revolver guy again, because usually somebody will pop up at the range with a revolver and you kind of look at it and you go, I remember shooting this thing and have to do the speed loader drill and the PPC courses back in the day, the practical pistol courses back in the day when I first became a law enforcement person. But this thing is the best of everything this thing has ever made. It has 8 shots, man. I've never seen a 357 with 8 shots. None of the speed loaders that I had in the dusty, moldy holster bag in my safe even fit. So I got to buy some new gear. But I'm going to be shooting a mess out of this thing so that folks can see.
Isn't Jerry Mishlik's the one he did the world record on? Wasn't that 8 shots or was it 6?
It probably was 8, because that dude is the truth.
Oh man, yeah. But then if you watch those reloads he was doing, I was like, he was doing that on a revolver.
So I got that to aspire to. I figure ain't nobody else trying it. I might as well be number 2.
Hey,
I'd be like, what's that commercial? We number 2.
Hey, handle it, do it.
Yeah, man.
I'll stick to the semi-autos.
it's a good challenge, so I'm going for it. Hopefully, my next video will be the M&P 2.0 semi-auto. So next time I get a chance to go to the range, I'll be shooting that.
Nice, yeah. I'm curious to see what you're gonna put out on that one, because actually, Armament and Axis, he just put on the chat, you must get a KD hug on video. And I keep telling everybody, I am going to get that hug from Kevin Dixie.
Oh, right. That dude was doing some good stuff, man, on Instagram and other channels.
Oh, yeah, Kevin's putting in that work.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, so the whole thing about the hug that Kevin's going to get from me, and even if I got to pull out some jiu-jitsu, he is going to get that hug. You know?
Man, what's really cool is that there is a growing number of instructors and teachers and facilitators and activists that never existed 20 years ago. And they're all over, and they're spreading the word, and they're almost self-sufficient, self-employed. They're not getting money from any giant corporation. Luckily, everybody's crowdfunding and getting a few pennies here and there. It's a cool thing.
What's your take on all the jumping to conclusion with the gun laws and everything, and the president saying, he's going to do the bump stocks without Congress, if they don't come to a resolution?
Man, he's just throwing that under the bus. There's everybody wants somebody to do something. So politicians are trying to find something that they can use. So the bump stock is perfect because nobody cares.
Right.
Usually they've grabbed everything. When I started thinking about it last night and doing the podcast, I remember the magazine limitation thing where we're going to make this thing only 10 rounds. And I thought, who cares about that? And then the next thing was adjustable stocks. And then they couldn't have a bayonet lug on the front of it. And they just picked some cosmetic thing, and it doesn't have to fix anything. It doesn't have to save a life. You just have to do something, and then everybody's happy. Oh yeah. When I was in office, I got the colors turned from pink to black. There'll be no more pink guns now. And everybody's like, yeah, way to go. We'll vote for you again. And that's all they really want. And the people who are spun up and stirred up don't know that they're being played. And
oh yeah,
the gun people who are already firearms owners, sometimes we get fired up when you might want to just hold up, because if you let the dust settle, they'll shoot each other. I mean, they'll just beat each other about not moving fast enough, about not being puppets of the organizations, the National Rifles. I mean, they'll just go crazy. So if you don't give them anybody to argue and to target with, they'll implode.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's like I said, like I know with me, a lot of stuff that I listen to, I just be like, okay, whatever. But then there's a lot of stuff I'll be like, they don't even know what they're talking about. I just put a post on Instagram not too long ago. They had some guy on CNN. He was talking and showing somebody else how to shoot, and the guy was holding the gun, the rifle all wrong. And the other guy was like, okay, this is 5 single shots. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you full semi-automatic. What? And stuff like that kind of pisses me off, because ignorance is bliss. How many other people will take that information and see, oh, look at this guy, look how dangerous that gun is. It's jumping around in his arm, and like I was showing one of my friends tonight, and when I showed her the video, she was like, oh, wow, that's a dangerous weapon. I said, okay, now watch this video. And I showed a video with Travis Haley doing a speed drill with the AR-15 going between 3 targets, in a matter of like a second, like 15 rounds in a second. You know what I'm saying? He's holding it differently, which is a proper technique of holding it. He's practicing trigger control, and it's a semi-automatic. Why are they trying to debunk something, like making up terms to make it seem like it's worse than what it really is?
And because people don't read, because people don't study, because people don't look for the truth, whoever is a celebrity, whoever looks like they might know something, whoever has the prime time on television, that's it. They don't go any further than that. I never forget when I took a driving class. I took a terrorist driving course, and we were on a professional track with NASCAR teachers. And this raggedy looking Nova that we were driving, that was a special souped up vehicle that allowed us to do J-turns and a whole bunch of other crazy stuff like the Dukes of Hazzard. Mm-hmm. Once we got in that car and the real drivers got behind it, man, they were doing vehicle dynamics. I didn't even know that was such a word. We were doing drifts and cutting through apexes, and we're doing high speed J-turns, and I didn't even know cars could do that except for on television. And it's the same way when you run a firearm.
Yeah.
If you don't have any training, that tool is limited. But if you are trained, then you know what you can do with it, and that works both sides. You can scare people with that same methodology, or if they saw Jerry Miculek shoot a revolver like he does, they'll be trying to ban wheel guns again.
That's a true statement. Did you ever take a course that showed you how to shoot angles? Like it shows you like how to shoot and make the bullet like bounce off the ground and everything.
Oh yeah.
And everything. I did that one time, but it was back in like 96, 97. And however it was supposed to be the course where you learn how to drive and everything like that. I had a detail, so I couldn't do the driving portion, but I did the shooting portion, like shooting around a car, different angles, making the bullet bounce and all that. And I was like, man, that's pretty interesting.
So go back to martial arts as well. I've seen, how many people have seen a guy who he doesn't weigh anything have somebody's submission, and you're like, how in the world did you just move that big guy? Mm-hmm. But if you don't know how the body works or how arms don't bend a certain way, you can't do it.
Oh yeah. That's all day, every day.
Yeah. You have no idea until you actually get training. And right now, folks are going off of fiction. We're going off of fantasy. You're going off of what Senator Dianne Feinstein, who's been trying to ban guns since the invention of gunpowder. I think she's been like in office at the same amount of time. Right before all this stuff happened, I heard of the Trump slump. They were saying that firearms, man, sales were going down. People weren't buying anything because there was no rush to do so. But see, now I had a friend from Florida call me the other day. He said, hey, man, they're probably going to start banning ARs down here. Which one do you think I should get? And I was thinking, the Trump slump is over. A guy who didn't ever have an AR before, he's going to buy one or two now. I was like, yeah. And it's been the same way, dude, since I've been involved in this thing since 91. Mm-hmm. The assault weapons ban in 94. 94. Folks bought like 3 and 4 firearms because they wanted to get it before the ban hit. And then everybody had like 5 ARs. And then the price dropped down because everybody had a lot of them. Okay. At one time, they were like $1,500, $2,000 a piece. Then they went back down to $600, $900. We've done it with ammo. they'll say, well, those are cop killer bullets. It's like,
oh yeah,
what kind of bullets kill cops? All bullets, not
yeah.
just these. And so then they're just going to ban this one label. Man, we've been going through this thing forever. We have so many laws on the books that haven't saved anybody's life. Folks just get spun up, and the horse has left the corral. I mean, that thing is out. There's just evil out here. There's people that will do harm to you, and there's two people. There's one person that'll run, and there's one that'll fight. And we're talking to the people who will fight.
Yeah, it's going to get ugly because, like I said, right now, I think it's just going to get ugly because now big businesses are going to get involved in it, because I believe since a lot of people are turning away from the NRA, a lot of the big businesses are doing the same thing, and they're going to start using business platforms to start swaying political interests that same way.
Oh, it has always been there, man. No change.
Yeah.
There's a couple of those companies that they had already dropped their affiliation with the NRA before this thing even popped up. It wasn't making any money for them. It's always about cash, dude. But right now, everybody's getting ready for the big NRA annual meeting in Dallas. So there's a lot of companies that have built their whole reputation of like, all right, let's put an affiliate program together for these 3.5, 4.5, 5 million members that the NRA has. Is about money. Nobody even knew that these companies were associated with the NRA. So they pulling their programs down. And it got nothing to do with Parkland, Florida. It's just that their stuff didn't work. So they're going to kind of bounce back from it and use it.
Mm-hmm.
It's money. It's always been about money.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But what they say, money's the root of all evil. So
it's the love of money. That's the root of all evil. That's the technical thing. In the Bible, people get all twisted. If you love money so much, then that's when you get jacked up.
Yeah. Well, you know, like how it goes, man. You know, you just got some people who just bounce around and they just talk to be talking, and you got other people out there who are really in the fight for their reason, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me go ahead and ask you this one. What will be your solution for the school shootings? What do you think will actually make schools a safer place?
Education. You need to educate the kids on what firearms do, what they don't do, and then also educate people on dealing with people with problems, with noticing when somebody has a mental issue, when somebody's not feeling well, and there's when your peers are not acting right. There should be steps. Teenagers are teenagers. They always got moods. They're moody. They're up and down. It's what teenagers do. Puberty hits and your mind goes crazy. So it's hard to kind of jump in there, but you should also know that we are our brother's keeper and our sister's keeper. So I would say do a little health evaluation. Do that as well as some firearms instruction. Learn about when you conflict resolution. Learn about that whole bullying thing. Man, that just blows my mind on how it's different now than it was when I was a kid. Bullies have always existed. They exist in grown-ups, but they treat it differently now. We need to go back and actually learn how to talk to people and learn to really pinpoint real problems and not the ones we make up in our head.
I agree with that. So who would you say is the blame? Because like how everybody's pointing the finger and, oh, it was you. No, it was you. It was you. Even the NRA is getting blamed for the school shootings. Our
culture, our society. Nobody gets lost immediately. We get lost one step at a time. So we had a lot of stuff happening. Our culture became a lot more stuck into the cell phone individual thing versus being with other people. We don't talk, we don't communicate with each other. We don't spend time. Those cookouts are few and far between. The older folks do it, but the young folks don't. And if you isolate anybody, you make them nuts. That's a punishment. You put people in jail, you isolate them, and it makes them, it's a punishment to be by yourself. We self-choose to be by ourselves. And we got a whole generation of people who don't know how to handle stress, don't know how to handle each other. And it's happened gradually over time. It didn't happen like right away. So hopefully the pendulum will swing back slowly or fast, hopefully, back the other direction where we're talking about each other and caring about each other. I know as a preacher, I'm always talking about love. That's my thing, man.
Right.
It's what really binds people together, and we gotta come back to that.
I totally agree. I know, like, somebody had posed that question to me the other day, and society, that's the one to blame, you know. And then, of course, you know, you get the crazy look, like, well, why would you say that? And I was like, okay, so let's take this back to the first incident that comes in my mind: Rodney King getting beat. You know, you saw it on video. Like, those cops, they went to court and they beat the trial, right? The jury trial, of course. But if you was to actually put them in jail, hold them to the letter of the law for what they did, that would have set the tone for future incidents and every incident like that. You know, because now, in my mind, man, you're going to throw a cop in jail for what he did? You ain't got to worry about me doing nothing. You know?
Here's something about Rodney King. I remember when it happened. And a lot of people don't realize that when you go to court, there's a lot of things that come up in court that don't happen on media, don't happen on the news on purpose, because they don't want you to know the details. The details kind of kill the story. Right. Rodney King at the time was a big dude who was high on PCP, who had a long history, and the cops that arrested him were terrified of this dude. After they got him on the ground, he got back up, and he got back up in a way that inmates used to do right before they disarm somebody. And these guys freaked out and started wailing on him with their PR-24s. That was that Tonfa looking nightstick. And normally, if you are pain compliant, you're going to stop movement. Well, this dude didn't stop. He still was struggling. So they just like totally lost it. Didn't use any training. Training went out the window. They panicked, saw a big black dude that might kick their butts, and they just started stomping and beating this dude. And all that came out in the court. Didn't come out on camera. So all we got was the view of white cops beating a brother down, and folks went nuts. And then when the court case actually happened and all that stuff came out, the lack of training, the fear factor, these dudes punked out. This dude was hyped up on drugs. All them little details is why them guys walked. But that stuff doesn't sell. And it's better to say that it was racism. It's better to say that they just beat a brother down. The details about that. And then later you see Rodney talking about, you know, why can't we all just get along?
Yeah.
That dude knew what it went down. He was there.
Yeah, I didn't know about the PCP factor of it.
And he actually got some money. He won his case on some levels, on civil things, and it was doing really well. But then the money, I guess, went back to his old ways and got, you know, hooked on dope again. I think he died like early because, you know, his health was bad. Right. But it's a lot of stuff where cops get in it and the details don't come out.
Right. Well, that's everything, because, you know, like, you know, the agenda is, you know, make certain people look bad,
separate us, make sure we never get together.
Exactly. So, but like, once again, this is the society that we're living in today.
Yeah. We're actually so much alike, our cultures. We all want the same things. We just don't know it. And as soon as we get together, as soon as things happen so that we can be on one accord, somebody throws something in the mix to separate us so that we can still fight each other, because they make money off of the fight and the conflict. They don't want you to have peace, not in this lifetime. Very true.
That's very true. What they say, drama sells?
It does, man, all day. And if we're going to lead, then the story got to bleed. So put some blood in it, make some blood in the water, draw the sharks, make this story. It's funny how when TMZ first started, they were basically just gossiping, talking crazy stuff. But now almost every news channel you watch takes from TMZ. TMZ leads now. Their news actually better than the stuff you see on television. You got people, except for the weather, everybody else is making up stories and trying to sound all lifestyleish and cute. It used to be just the facts. The facts are gone, man. The facts are boring. So if you're going to try to talk about gun rights stuff, about the Second Amendment, and you're talking facts, it ain't sexy no more. You got to get drama.
you got to be emotional. And then that stuff grabs the camera. So the people who we watch on television, people who are stars in this thing, are drama queens. They can bring the action. They can make you hate them. They can make you fired up. And if you can keep that going, you got the camera on.
Yeah. First things first, if you want to contact me, feel free. You can email me at info@m-wtactical.com or just give me a call, 803-250-1256. If I don't answer, send a text message or leave a voice message, and I'll get back to you. Even if you just want to talk and just say, hey, or tell me what you want to hear us talk about on the show. Or if you want me to call Ken on three-way, give me a call. I call him. If he answers, we'll talk. If you haven't done so also, go on Instagram and follow me on Instagram under M-W Tactical or Munitions Weapons Tactical. The same thing on Twitter. And on Facebook, go to M-W Tactical. That's all I got.
All right, man.
Yeah, no problem. One team, one fight. We'll make it work. So until next week, keep shooting, keep practicing, and have fun. Back to you, Ken.
Thanks.
All right.
Guy.
I know we went long that time, so I would love to hear your feedback, and so would Michael. You can tell us what you think of this episode and our conversation. Thanks.
Speak Life Podcast.
Have you heard my other podcast? Speak Life. Proverbs 18:21 says that life and death are in the power of the tongue. Join me in faith and be a part of my family on a podcast that gives you what you missed in church. SpeakLifePodcast.com. Serving Jesus without boundaries. SpeakLifePodcast.com. And we're on Facebook too. SpeakLifePodcast.com. The ninth commandment in the 10 Commandments, Exodus 20, verse 16 says, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. To be a false witness against our neighbor basically means to falsely accuse someone else of wrongdoing. In the Torah, false witnesses were dealt with very harshly. If this righteous rule were established in today's court systems, there wouldn't be nearly the problems we see today. What does this have to do with gun control? I believe that gun control equals bearing false witness against your neighbor. What I see every day is politicians, the ignorant, the arrogant, the elite, accusing the law-abiding citizen of being a murderer just because they decide to own a firearm, just because they decide to have an AR-15, just because they decide to have a magazine that holds more than 10 rounds, just because they decide to have a semi-automatic firearm of any type. They are bearing false witness against us. That's it for this week. I want to thank you for listening, downloading, and supporting this podcast. I am not a bombastic gun guy. I might be a little too subdued for some people, but I've been around since the fax machine and bulletin boards online, actually. I've been the leader of a national black gun club called the 10th Cavalry that I founded in 1991. I've testified for concealed carry reform in a few states. I've been a part of the gun community ever since. I've lost positions, almost my job, bankrupted my family, chased after the dream of entrepreneurship in this space. I have learned. All my wisdom comes from the school of hard knocks. I've seen smooth talkers come and go. I've seen the keypad contenders and the photograph pretenders. I'm a life member of the National Rifle Association. I helped edit the Refuse to Be a Victim program. I've even received a commendation for the Eddie Eagle program, bringing it to the nation's capital. I've even been awarded the Harlan Carter Award for Civil Rights from the NRA. I'm currently on the training committee. I created this podcast in 2007 to keep in touch with all the great Americans that I've met around the country, while testifying, while speaking, while learning to shoot, while learning to teach, while learning about my country. I tried it all. And sometimes I failed. One thing I'll never fail at, though, and that's inspiring and encouraging you. You know, we go through a lot in our day to day, and I'm just trying to make it a little bit better for you, because I know that you're on the right side, that you got yourself together, at least on this thing, freedom. This is Reverend Ken Blanchard, the heart and soul of the gun community. Just in case nobody's told you this today, I love you. And there's not a damn thing you can do about it. Until next week. Shalom, baby.
Until next time, friends.
To keep in touch with Ken and his cause, head over to blackmanwithagun.com.
Blanchard.media.